Welcome, everybody, to the Alliance Group podcast. We have Aldo Venturacci all the way from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Thank you so much for joining us for this edition of the Alliance podcast.
Well, thank you, Sam, for having me here. I'm really excited.
Yeah, me too. This is a fantastic subject that we are going to cover today, one that we have wanted to delve in with you at Alliance Group for a while. So it is awesome to have you here, Aldo. Aldo, you have created a group, an advocacy group called the Special Needs Family Planning and Support Group on Facebook, helping advocate for special needs kids and special needs families.
That's absolutely right, Sam. So we started this group on Facebook a few months ago. Mm-hmm. It started with when I joined forces with an estate planning attorney that works with special needs families, setting up all kinds of special needs trusts, which we're going to talk about later in the podcast.
Right.
But then as we met new families and new professionals, we realized that the need for more help was even bigger. So now we have a whole team of professionals, a growing team of professionals that can help families with special needs children in different areas, not just on the financial and the legal side.
Because there is so much support that a special needs family needs, and guidance and information. And so what you've really done, Aldo, and I think it's unbelievable what you're doing. You're really building this network of people that special needs families can be supported by, as you said, not just financially, not just planning, which are very, very important things to do, but also things like, for example, we were talking about like there's a horse therapist, there's a music therapist, right?
That's right. So the number one goal of the group was to create community. Right, so that families can really get to know each other and share their own personal experiences, because as special needs parents know their own challenges, and they know what questions they need to ask. Right. So building a community was really the original goal. And then, like I said, the estate planning attorney and I started this group, and then quickly, other professionals started popping up, almost like magically, right? I guess the stars just started aligning. So right now we have myself handling the special needs, plan of care,
right,
and also putting in place protection like living benefits, which we're also going to talk about.
Yeah, we're going to get into that for sure.
And then the estate planning attorney that can handle all of the legal planning for that child and the family. We have an IEP and 504 advocate too. So families needing support, in the school environment, we have a person that can work with them and make sure that the child gets all of the services that they need in the school environment. We have a psychologist that helps families now navigate, diagnosing and creating a plan of care for that child. A music therapist that just recently joined our team, which is the coolest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, you were telling me about this.
Yeah, I did a live with her on Facebook a couple weeks ago, and she was sharing how, she can get kids that are nonverbal to start singing their own names and their parents' names and some questions and requests, which is incredible, right?
That is awesome.
Yeah, and then we also have the horse therapist, Denise. She's an occupational therapist, and she's the executive director of a hippotherapy place, essentially providing healing with the help of a horse. That's exactly their tagline. So children with special needs, whether physical or developmental, can go and have structured writing sessions to really help them develop physically, but also emotionally and socially. Mm-hmm. And so it's an amazing team. I mean, they're doing a fantastic job, and I'm happy to be a part of it.
And it really is just the beginning, as you describe it. I mean, these people have come on board in a relatively short time, and as that group grows, you're just going to be adding to that team, adding to the list of resources that special needs families can access through that group. And really, as you said, provide a sense of community as well. Yes, resources, yes, tools, yes, advice, yes, all of that stuff. But also, I think really crucially is that sense of community where special needs families, sometimes I imagine, although it can be a little lonely, being a special needs family and kind of in that situation, and just being able to be in a group and part of a community that of people who are going through the same thing that you are is so important.
Absolutely. It is, and you nailed it. I mean, it is a lonely journey. You know, I mean, you get to meet other parents, but typically you meet them in very stressful environments, like in a hospital or a doctor's office setting. And so you don't really have an opportunity to really bond and create relationships, right? So special needs parents were essentially living in 5-minute increments, right? I mean, we're concerned about what's going to happen in the next 5 minutes because it's a lot, right? It's a lot. And so creating a space for families to really interact and speak freely about, you know, without any fear of judgment or anything like that. That's why we're very strict with who we let into the group. Like, I'm the admin.
Right.
I'll literally see a request for someone who wants to join. Not only do they have to answer the membership questions, but I'll go into their personal profile and verify their story because, you know, we want this to be a very safe space for families to just be themselves, right? Without any fears.
Absolutely. Not just growing the group as fast as you can, but growing it the right way.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we're not in a hurry, man. We want to bring in the right people so we can really help them, you know.
So obviously you're very passionate about this, and I love working and with agents like yourself who have a true calling, who have a true passion, who feel compelled to work with certain groups and help them with the solutions that we can provide in our industry. I want to go back for a second, although, and let's talk about Mateo, right? And how you started your journey as a special needs advocate by being a special needs parent yourself.
Absolutely. So, I started my journey in this world as a parent. I mean, my son Mateo is 12 and a half years old now, and he was born with achondroplasia, which is a very complicated medical term for short-limbed dwarfism. So it's the most common type of dwarfism, the one that you see, you know, a lot, like some famous, you know, actors even, you know, Peter Dinklage. Any Game of Thrones fans out there would instantly recognize. Absolutely. And so...
Or Elf fans. I know that he cracked me up in Elf. His scene is one of my favorites in that movie.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's great, man. And so you start the journey really trying to accept that there's something wrong with your child. And I do this in quotes because it's really not wrong or right. It's just who they are, right?
Right.
But it's outside of what we've been conditioned to deal with, right? So you expect that, you know, that certain sequence of events to happen, and then all of a sudden life throws that curveball and you have to relearn a lot of things. So being open to having to learn new things. So we went through that phase, my wife and I, obviously, you know, the acceptance, and then there's the worry because there's a lot of medical complications with any type of disability or special needs, right? There's a myriad of other complications secondary to the main issue, and so you have to deal with that, and that's what we did. And then there's, you know, the doctors and the medical terms and the therapies, and so you're always too busy thinking about the present, you know, and you don't really stop to think about the future, you know, for the most part, right? We started actually realizing that we weren't really making any long-term plans because we're too stuck with, you know, having
what's happening in the next 5 minutes, as you said.
Right. You know, what appointments do we have this week or next week? And that's about where it ends, right? And just living one day at a time. And that's okay. That's part of life, right? But we also need to start thinking about the future because everybody needs to think about the future, right?
And especially special needs families. There are a lot of things that you have to plan for in those situations that are different from what would you call it? I guess a typical family, right?
A typical family, right? I mean, when people, you know, hear about what we're doing and they ask me, okay, what's so different about, you know, planning for special needs as opposed to like any other family, right? I'm like, the shortest and simplest way to put it is this. Like most couples will go through life raising their kids and planning for 2 retirements, right? That's really what we do. Now, when there's a child with special needs involved, now all of a sudden you have to plan for 3 retirements. And that third one is going to last a lot longer than the other 2, right? So that's the beginning, right? So you have to think about what's going to happen when you're gone, right? Well, when I'm gone, hopefully kids will be all raised and, you know, have great jobs, great families, and be independent. Yes, but not necessarily. Now that child may need to, you know, may depend on someone for the rest of their lives.
Right.
So who's going to take care of them? right? Do you have legal protection in place to make sure that they can get benefits that they're getting today, but also potentially, potential benefits that they can get in the future, both federal and state
Right.
benefits and services? And who's going to take care of that? How are you going to pay for it? So
Yep.
these are all questions that you need to be asking yourself and looking for those answers, and start looking for those answers.
Absolutely. So you found yourself kind of going through this for the first time, kind of firsthand. At what point did you kind of realize there needs to be a resource that I can go to, that I can find this information in one place, and you decided maybe you needed to create that?
Well, that's right, because our own personal journey in our family, we had nobody to turn to. I mean, obviously, we had communities of people with the same condition as our son, so we got a lot of answers there, but mostly about the condition, and things that we needed to be paying attention to, but
Right.
never in a sense of planning for the future, right?
Right.
And things start happening, right? We had a few things that happened that involved, some attorneys and whatnot. And then essentially, we found ourselves in a situation where we needed to figure out a way to protect our son's state and federal benefits that he's currently receiving.
Right.
And that's how I found out about things like special needs trust and all of these things, which, it wasn't too late because, I had an opportunity to do it, but the last thing that you want is to find out that you need to worry about something when you're there. I mean, you want to plan in advance so that it's a smoother ride, right?
Right.
I mean, that's what I'm trying to say. And
Right.
so, yes, I couldn't find anywhere online, any community that's doing what we're doing here. So I figured, if there isn't one, then let's start our own.
Right. What you had to learn about, I mean, you and I were kind of doing a pre-interview where we're talking about you're finding out about things and educating yourselves about things like first party trust, there's third party trusts, there's, all this kind of strategy that has to go into making sure that you're not accidentally shooting yourself and your child in the foot by doing things the wrong way. So you really have to have expert advice from an attorney to make sure that you set things up properly in a way that is going to optimize the financial future of the benefits for your kid and their financial future in general, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm not an attorney, right? So I'm not,
Right. We want to have a disclaimer here. Aldo is not an attorney, and not giving legal advice, but definitely talking about your experience going through this, and you do want people to consult with an attorney that they trust, and if they don't have one, you can absolutely provide a referral to someone who might be able to help them.
Yes, absolutely. So I can share my experience as a parent.
Yes.
Once you start having the need to have certain legal documents in place, then it becomes very stressful, right? Because now it's kind of a race against the clock. Taking some time now to at least have that conversation. You may not necessarily put everything in place, all at once, but at least understand the things that you should be considering,
Right.
so that you can really do it, at your own pace. Some of these things, will cost some money to set up, so you may not have the resources now, which is okay.
Right.
But at least knowing what what you really should be doing
Right.
will give you a lot of peace of mind. That's what I tell my families, the families that I work with. I'm like, it'll give you so much peace of mind and knowing. Or you may start losing sleep over it. It really depends on how the urgency, but
Sure.
at least knowing that you have a path, you have a blueprint of things that you should be doing. And so the whole thing with the special needs trust, and then it started getting confusing, happened because we came across a situation where we had to have one in place, otherwise my son would potentially lose all of his benefits. And I'm talking medical services that were essential for his quality
daily
of
life, right.
And so I started consulting different attorneys, and I quickly realized that it's such a specific topic,
A niche,
that
right.
Exactly. And even attorneys that are great at estate planning weren't necessarily prepared to draft a special needs trust because it is very, very specific, right? So eventually,
and not only specific in general, as in special needs trust itself, but also it's very specific from family to family. Every family situation is just so different. So you need a really skilled attorney who has knowledge in this area to be able to set it up properly. Because if they just try to apply some
template.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Then you could end up in a bad place. They really need to understand this area.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. It's not like you can go online to one of those, legal websites and download a template and fill in the blanks. It's not going to work.
Right.
Not going to work. State laws vary, right? Each family is different. Each condition is different. So you really need to have it drafted specifically for you. Like some of the language will be, universal, but then, there's room to implement very specific guidelines and rules inside that trust that will really fit your specific family situation, right? So that's why it's important to work with someone who really, really understands special needs planning, but also someone who can demonstrate empathy and really listen to you and really understand, who's not in a hurry to draft a document, and get that wire transfer, that check in. You know what I mean? Like someone who really cares.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to say. And I'm lucky enough to have an estate planning attorney who I work with who's just that person.
Right.
And it's no coincidence. That's the reason why, we're working together now. So yes, absolutely. I mean, if you already have, anyone listening, if you already have an attorney, an estate planning attorney that you trust, go talk to them. Absolutely.
Right.
But if you need someone to talk to, then I can certainly, have our partner attorney have a conversation with you. Absolutely.
And I think, it's one of the biggest things that you're doing in your work is being able to connect people to those resources that have helped you so much. And again, I know you said this before, but it would have been great for you if you would have right out of the box had this group in place and been able to tap into it and immediately have that community, have all these resources that people can readily connect you to. It probably would have made your experience at least a lot less stressful, right? You wouldn't have had to kind of stumble over that and do all your research yourself and kind of do all the work and all the worry on your own.
Right, especially because if you do research on your own, eventually you'll come across information that's not accurate, right? And now who do you trust? Right? Do I trust this website or this article that I just saw? So it's really, really complicated. So yes, forming this group and having this centralized resource, I feel is very, very valuable for really sharing quality and accurate information and again, and support, really, hold their hands and really help them, get through it, because it's not easy.
Absolutely. So let's back up a second, just for anyone who might be watching who doesn't know what a special needs trust is. I kind of do this thing sometimes. I'm like, explain to our audience as if it was an audience of 5-year-olds, like simplest terms you can. What is a special needs trust, and why is it important for a family with a special needs child to look into that as a potential tool that can help their situation?
Perfect. So a person with a disability or special needs may either be currently receiving government benefits, whether federal or state benefits, like SSI, which is Security Supplemental Income, or SSDI, which is Social Security Disability Income, or Medicaid, all of these services, right? Some services are federal, some services are state, and some are means tested and some are needs based. What do I mean by that? Some services are just granted to a person with a disability, period, right? But some other services are based on the family's, if we're talking about a minor child, based on the family's income and assets, right? And after the child becomes an adult, their own income and assets.
Gotcha.
So there's a test, and if you make too much or if you have too much, then you may not qualify for those services. They may be interrupted, which it could be disastrous for any family. And so what commonly happens when there's no protection in place is that parents, grandparents, other relatives or friends involuntarily, out of their own good heart,
they're trying to help.
Right, they want to leave something for that child, right? Whether it's property or cash or anything, right? What ends up happening is once that child receives funds that are over the limit, then those benefits can get cut off.
Oh my goodness!
Right, and then to reestablish those services, a lot of times you have to take emergency measures, which are not ideal.
Right.
So what is a special needs trust, essentially? It's a document that you can have. It's a trust, right, which is a set of, legal instructions,
Right.
if you will.
It's a fund, basically, right?
Right. And the trust essentially becomes an entity on its own, right? Now, what happens is that trust now can receive unlimited amounts of assets, whether it's cash, life insurance proceeds, real estate, anything really of value can now be owned by the trust. And the trust is solely for the benefit of that person with special needs.
Right.
Right. Now, there are certain limitations of what the trust can pay for. So essentially, housing, food, and utilities, but again, not an attorney, but just so people listening can kind of understand.
There are limitations, and there is, there are certain guidelines that you have to follow.
But for, health and quality of life, really anything. So, it can pay for a vacation for that person. It can pay for, manicure and pedicure. It can pay for a lot of things, assisted devices, modifications to cars and homes and things like that. So what happens is when the trust owns those assets, the person or the child doesn't own them directly.
So it doesn't count as income.
It doesn't count as income or assets, so they can still remain eligible for those benefits.
Which is enormous. That's absolutely huge. So, I mean, I'm sure there are special needs families out there that maybe have not gotten any advice. Of course, like you said, the nature of that situation is that you're constantly worrying about, today and tomorrow and what's the next appointment. So sometimes it can be hard for a special needs family to get educated on things like this. And unfortunately, I'm sure there are situations where they don't find out until it's too late that they did something wrong, or that they could have used the advice of an attorney to set up something like a special needs trust. So that hopefully is something. I mean, what percentage of special needs families that have a significantly special needs child, what percentage of those people do you think would benefit from a conversation with an attorney about? I mean, is it some? Is it pretty
100%?
100%
to have the conversation. Now, whether or not there's a need today, then that'll be determined after the conversation. But having that conversation, 100% of families should be having.
And that's just one example of so.
Right. And I'll tell you why. I'm sorry.
Sure.
If you have a child with special needs, they may not be receiving benefits today. Right? Maybe, you're way over the income and asset limits, which, by the way, you know what the asset limit is to disqualify a family from receiving those federal or state benefits for that child? It's $2,000.
What?
$2,000. So, I mean, we're here in Atlanta. I'm from South Florida. $2,000 in total assets, not income, assets. So if the child, let's say grandpa and grandma left a $2,001 gift to that child, they're already over the limit.
Oh my gosh, that's insane.
Right? So I'm from South Florida. You're in Atlanta. I don't know about Atlanta, but South Florida, $2,000 won't go very far.
No, not in Atlanta either.
Right? Or anywhere really today. Right? So imagine that. Sometimes, like I said, involuntarily, you could be disqualifying or interrupting those services. So things like, a 401k or a retirement account or anything that you have, if the trust is not assigned a beneficiary for that account specifically, then what's going to happen is, if you, as a parent, you pass away, then it's going to go to your next of kin, typically your spouse, and then your kids. And at that moment, that child is over the limit. Yeah. And now there's a whole a series of things that you have to do as an emergency type situation to prevent those services.
So this is where estate planning comes in.
Absolutely, 100%.
It's super, super important. And I know special needs parents. It's a heartbreaking quote, but you were talking when we were doing our pre-interview for this. There was a quote you were talking about what special needs parents have to think about as far as outliving their child. What was this quote that we were talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's really tough sometimes talking about these things because we get very emotional. But
of course.
I was talking to some parents. I was actually trying to get some feedback about some of the things that we're doing so that we could provide these families even more value. And then the question that was asked was, what's your biggest fear in life? Right? And the majority of parents answered my child outliving me. And then I was like, no, but listen, but that's what every parent wants, right? Every parent wants to, that's a natural order of things. I mean, you want to go before your children.
Right.
And I'm like, nope, I pray every day that my child dies before I do, because then I don't have to worry about who's going to take care of him and how they're going to pay for it. And the thing is, I understand completely the concern, but it doesn't have to be that way. There are things that can be done now to give those parents peace of mind that their children will be taken care of, both legally, financially, and also that there will be people that will take good care and manage all of those things for that child. So that's our job, man.
Absolutely. So you're not just a connector, although you have built this community, and it's amazing the work that you're doing to connect special needs families to the professionals and to the resources that they need to optimize their situation, their child's situation. But you also are a financial professional who has access. You're not just an educator, you're also an implementer. You can help put some of these solutions in place for these families. And as someone who works in the financial services industry, you have access to several tools that you say are just absolutely 100% every special needs family needs to have these things in place. Can you talk about some of those concepts that you can help people with?
Absolutely. Well, we're here at Alliance Group, and Alliance Group is all about living benefits.
We are.
And I can't stress enough how important having living benefits is. Special needs or not, everybody should have it, right? I mean, everybody has car insurance, has health insurance. Some people even have cell phone insurance.
Right.
But they don't insure the income that pays for all of these other things, right? And so living benefits, for sure, that's really the foundation.
Living benefits being that new kind of life insurance, right, where it does provide a death benefit, just like any life insurance policy. But crucially, living benefits is going to give you access to the death benefit while you're still alive as a parent if something happens to you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I talk to people about life insurance every day, and I hear a lot, what are the odds of me dying too soon, right? No, and you're probably right, not very high, right?
You still have to protect against it, but the odds aren't huge.
Right, but you're 9 times more likely to have a heart attack, stroke, cancer, or an accident. If you live in a big city and you drive on the highways every day.
Yeah. 80 miles an hour to and from work. A guy pulled out in front of me today, and I had to slam on the brakes.
Exactly. On that note, I want to share a quick story, which I wasn't prepared to share, but it's very emotional. I was talking to a friend of mine the other day because I saw he was doing a GoFundMe, and I reached out to him. I hadn't talked to him in a while, and I said, "Hey, what happened?" Right? And he said, "Well," and then he told me he was driving. He had a stroke while he was driving.
Oh my gosh!
And he ended up, crashing into a wall on a highway. He was in a hospital in a coma for a few days, and he was hospitalized for months, getting physical therapy, occupational therapy, and all of those things. Eventually came out of the hospital, went home. He actually, if you didn't know, then you couldn't tell, right? He looks 100% recovered. However, not having an income throughout all of that time, and also the additional medical expenses just really caused him to have to go online and beg for money from strangers, which is essentially what's happening. So then he asked me, what's up with you? What you been up to? And we hadn't talked in a while. And I told him, what I've been doing, how I've been helping families. And he said, dude, why didn't you call me to let me know what you were doing before this happened? And I guess a lot of us professionals in this industry, we're saying, well, you know what, I don't want to call my friends because, I don't want them to think that I'm trying to sell my friends anything. Right. And essentially we're not, but it is our job and our duty to let people know what we do and how these living benefits could potentially save someone's life. Maybe not their physical life, but certainly their financial life.
Absolutely. I always say that it's a blessing and a curse that we have to bear as financial professionals in the industry that we're in, dealing with living benefits, and that, it's amazing. It's a blessing when you're able to help a family. God forbid something happens. I had my friend Bobby, who I talk about a lot. I sold him a $750,000 term policy. He suffered a heart attack at age 40 and was able to get over $425,000 in his pocket, which helped replace his income, which took all the financial stress out of that situation. That's the blessing part. But the curse part is exactly what you just described, which is every time something happens to somebody that we know, we have to think, I could have helped them if I would have reached out to them, if I would have talked to them.
Yeah. Or if they would have paid attention to what I was saying, because it's not like we're now talking to people about it, but some people are just not listening.
Right. So everybody needs living benefits. We believe that. Many of our viewers believe that. You believe that, of course. But especially when it comes to special needs families, talk about how living benefits specifically important for everyone to have. Absolutely critical for special needs parents to have.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, any parent wears many hats, right? I mean, we work, we earn an income, or maybe you just a stay-at-home parent, but besides all of the normal activities, the cooking, the cleaning, the driving, that adds up quickly, right?
All parents are busy. Special needs parents,
but
even
now,
more so.
Special needs parents wear some, a few extra hats. Nurse, doctor, therapist, right?
Yeah.
EMT, a lot of times. And so the financial implications of something like we're just discussing happening to a parent that's either earning an income to support the family, or the parent that's at home taking care of that child could be, catastrophic.
Yeah. And right? you actually were talking about how in that scenario that you just described, where in many times I imagine in a special needs family, you do have someone that's out there working full time, making the income that's supporting the family, but you also have that parent that is staying home and being the caretaker. And if you were to take that parent away, the stay-at-home caretaker, right, if you tried to replace that person financially by hiring in help to do all the things that parent does,
hundreds of thousands of dollars a year.
Hundreds of thousands a year.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars.
In most cases, probably, the likelihood is that person, that parent who's staying at home, they are bringing actually more value, monetary value to the family than the one that's out there actually generating the income.
Absolutely. I can almost guarantee you that every single time that parent that's at home taking care of the child, plus doing all of the parent, work,
right,
brings in more value than the parent that's out there working full-time and possibly even 2 full-time jobs.
Right.
Absolutely, 100%.
And in some cases, double and triple the value.
Easily.
So being protected with something that financially, having a financial layer of protection in there that is going to make sure that if life throws a curveball to either of those parents, and there is something like a cancer diagnosis or a heart attack, or God forbid a stroke, God forbid these things happen, but you have to be prepared financially for that scenario and have something that's going to put money on the table, so that you can navigate that situation, hopefully move past that situation and get back to normal.
Yeah, absolutely. If they could take one thing out of, this whole episode, is life insurance, especially life insurance with living benefits, has nothing to do with your human value to your family and your community. And I hear that a lot. I'm sure you hear that a lot. Well, if I get $1 million, my life is worth way more than that. Yeah, absolutely it is.
Right.
Absolutely. But let's look at your income and what would it take to replace that income? Mm-hmm. And that's what we're replacing. We're not replacing, the love you have for your kids, mm-hmm, or the value you add to the community. We're only replacing your income to make sure that your family can sustain that same lifestyle, maintain, your expenses under control so you don't go into debt and potentially bankruptcy.
Right.
Which the numbers in bankruptcy, medical-related bankruptcies are...
They say 50% of all bankruptcies are medical bankruptcies in this country. 50% of all of them. And 68% of those, by the way, had health insurance, and health insurance did not save them from bankruptcy. There's many things that health insurance doesn't cover in many scenarios. So we always say it's kind of, it's what we preach every day at Alliance Group, is living benefits is not just a luxury to have, it's a necessity to have for every family. But as we're talking about for special needs, it's a requirement almost.
It is a requirement because, like you said, Sam, if you need to replace mom or dad with a professional to perform those duties, mm-hmm, even if it's driving the child to, clinics and therapies and whatnot, mm-hmm, it's going to cost a lot of money.
Yep.
A lot of money. Yep. That parent is not charging the family, right?
Yeah.
But it will need to be replaced by someone.
And it will cost money.
And that's why I think living benefits as a foundation for a family taking care of raising a child with special needs you couldn't build a stronger foundation than living benefits life insurance for sure.
Let's take it a step further and talk about policies that you can get that actually include what would normally be, in many cases, an uninsurable child. They obviously have health challenges. A lot of people just think, well, I can't get them any insurance policy. They're not going to be involved. That isn't true, right? Through some of the services that you provide, there are ways that you can plan using life insurance to kind of set up that protection as well.
Right, absolutely. So up to this point, we're talking about life insurance that pays when you pass away or when you get sick to replace your income, right?
The parents, right?
The parents. But what a lot of people don't know is that there are certain types of life insurance policies, which are called permanent life insurance or cash value life insurance, that allows you to save money inside of those policies and benefit from a very special tax treatment of that cash, meaning that cash grows tax deferred. You can access the money tax free. So I do have some parents that ask me, if there's a way to implement some type of a savings program inside of a life insurance policy for the child, but the condition causes that child to be uninsurable, right? And it is true for the most part, right? You couldn't take a policy on that one child specifically, like we do typically with children for like college planning or even retirement planning, right? We have our $1 million baby concept, which is awesome, right? So you couldn't do that with that child, but what you can do is use a very specific type of life insurance policy called a second to die policy, which allows, essentially there are two people that are insured in the policy, 2 lives,
right?
But one of those lives can be someone who's completely uninsurable, right? So now you may be asking, but why would you want to put life insurance on the child if they're the ones who are going to need the benefit, right? Yes, but hold on, right? You start planning and you start funding that policy with the sole goal of having as much cash growth inside of that policy as you can.
Right.
Now you're building a source of income for that child in the future, even though they're not going to get the death benefit when the parent passes away from that policy.
Right.
But hopefully they'll have their living benefit. They'll have another one to pay. But now that child is going to benefit from that policy by receiving tax-free income forever.
Right.
For as long as they live.
So that cash value that's building up in this second to die life insurance policy, the child can basically start accessing that later in life, right? So
absolutely,
you're building
100%.
up, you're utilizing the power of compound interest. You're enabling your child to take advantage of the tax advantages that permanent life insurance affords that normally they wouldn't be able to qualify for. But with these special types of policies, they can be involved in that. They can benefit from that. And as you were saying, you can create a tax-free income stream that starts in their later years that is going to ensure that, again, what we were talking about before, there are things that you can do to make sure that if you do outlive your child, your special needs child, that they are taken care of financially and that you have laid that path for them.
Yes, absolutely. And with some other advantages too. I mean, we hear people doing things like Roth IRAs, saving in a Roth IRA, which is fine. I mean, we're not against any of these things. I mean, the thing with the permanent life insurance, especially the second to die policy, is that it allows you to start drawing income from this policy at a much younger age than you would, for example, with the Roth IRA. And if you need to start drawing income before you're 59 and a half years old, that child, then you can from your life insurance policy. Whereas with the Roth IRA, there'd be, some implications, potential, taxes. I mean, I'm not a CPA, but there are some restrictions which you don't have with permanent life insurance. And so it could be a great wealth building tool for that special needs child. It kind of helping take the, how we're going to pay for it a problem, not completely away sometimes, but essentially taking care of that problem, right?
Yep.
So that you can, focus on the other things that you need to plan. So I'm a huge fan of this type of strategy for building wealth. And even though the child could be considered uninsurable because they're young, if you do, while they're young, then the cost of insurance is super, super low.
Yep. And they have that huge, long runway to generate that wonderful compound interest, which is really the power of these permanent life insurance policies. The younger a client is when they have one of these policies, the longer they have to save, the more impressive those results can be.
Time is your friend.
Time is your greatest
saving
ally.
money in a
interest earning account.
An interest earning account that earns compound interest, time, really, you can't beat time.
Yeah.
I mean, money, you could put a little more, a little less.
Mm-hmm.
The return could be a little higher, a little lower, but time, it really is your friend.
It is your greatest ally when
Yeah,
it comes to
absolutely.
saving. And we've just discussed a couple of examples of these really kind of specialty niche concepts and ideas and things to think about as a special needs family. And really, again, Aldo, this kind of gets to the heart of why you started this group in the first place. I'm sure no one had ever heard of second to die permanent life insurance cash value strategies. Or you're not just going to hear about that in your normal everyday life. You have to kind of be in this group, in this area, to kind of hear about some of these very niche concepts that can be utilized by special needs families to just help ease that burden, to help ease not only the burden of saving and things like that, but the mental burden of being a special needs parent. You have so many things to think about. It must be a huge relief to some of these families to be able to come to your group and, again, find not only that community, but find some solutions, find some answers, find some ideas.
Find hope.
Find hope.
That's
right?
that's really what it's all about.
Mm-hmm.
When you feel hopeless and you find a group that can offer you support and family, then you start dreaming again, and hope. And that's really, really our goal, is to give hope back to those families, allow them to dream again, and not have to have these crazy ideas of disinheriting their children with special needs because they want to protect the services, potentially even ruining family relationships, or shifting the whole burden of taking care of that special needs child to their siblings, who now are now going to really be able to pursue their dreams. There are ways to either mitigate or completely eliminate a lot of those fears.
But it takes planning. It takes knowledge, right?
Yeah, and it takes, a community of people that understand, that go through it, that not just, specialize in this area professionally, but also deal with this at home every day, and really, really understand. I mean, I tell people, I can tell you have a situation without you telling me a word, because I can see it in your eyes. And when we're, whether, at Disney, with our child, and there's parents with a child with any type of disability, we don't have to say anything to each other. We just look at each other, kind of give that nod, like, I get it, man.
Yeah.
I know it ain't easy, but, we're all in this together, and that's really our goal.
Oh, it's awesome, Aldo. So a wonderful parent, a wonderful advocate, wonderful organizer, wonderful person, and wonderful friend of Alliance Group. Aldo, thank you so much for joining us. We are going to film a ton of content with Aldo here in the Stratton Studios today. We're looking forward to it. More educational content that is going to help populate this awesome group that he has put together, the Special Needs Family Planning and Support Group on Facebook. And Aldo, they can just go to Facebook and find that group.
They can search Facebook for the group. I don't know if maybe we can leave in the description of the episode a link to the group. We can
Absolutely,
do that
we can do that. And again, Special Needs Family Planning and Support. We'll make sure those words are up on the screen as well, so you can search for the right thing. I think Aldo and I are actually going to try to find a way to maybe shorten that a little bit, find a little searchable.
Spice it up, create something, a little catchy name. Yeah, we're working on it, so it'll come eventually. But it'll always be, Special Needs Family Planning and Support. But maybe, we'll have, a big, movement name or a call name.
Absolutely. So we're looking forward to getting all of that film with you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Sam.
Absolutely love working with you, and I'm excited to see what we create together today. And thank you on behalf of everybody, all the families that you're helping for this effort that you've put together, and for these resources that you've compiled for everybody.
No, thank you and Alliance Group for giving special needs families a voice and really bringing this, awareness to the community and to everybody. Because you may not be, maybe you're listening, you don't have that situation at home, but I'm willing to bet my entire life savings that somebody who is.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So help us, share this with your friends, with your family, with your neighbors, your at the schools that your kids go to. We really want to bring awareness, and we couldn't do this without the help of Alliance Group, and that's why we love you guys so much. And thanks again, Sam. Really appreciate it.
Together we're better, baby. Thank you again to Aldo, and thank you guys for joining us for this edition of the Alliance Group podcast.
Listen to this interview and more on the Alliance Group podcast.